Welcome to Financing Your Education 101. This is the first of a series of webinars put on by the University of Calgary in the month of July. My name is Kenrick, and I am an Enrollment Services Advisor with the Office of the Registrar. I am joined by my colleague Kaylee, who is also an Enrollment Services Advisor, and she will be monitoring the chat for us tonight. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat throughout the presentation. Kaylee will answer what she can, and we will also save some time towards the end for Q&As. Now, we'll be able to answer some general questions, but if you have specific questions for your own circumstances, please contact us directly and we will provide you with information on how to reach us close to the end of this session. Now, tonight we will go through a lot of information, but do not worry, this session is being recorded and will be uploaded to our webinars webpage within a few days, and you'll be able to review if needed. Before we get into the content for tonight, I would like to start with a land acknowledgement. The University of Calgary, located in the heart of southern Alberta, both acknowledges and pays tribute to the traditional territories of the peoples of Treaty 7, which include the Black Confederacy, comprised of the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, including Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Districts 5 and 6. Now, we are going to first discuss government student aid, important dates and deadlines for applications. We're going to go over the financial aid process, talk a bit about the life cycle of the financial aid process, and also what to expect for the disbursement of funds. Then we will discuss some important information with U Calgary Awards, including some dates to be aware of, how and when to apply, disbursement, and what to expect if you have already been issued an award. And finally, we will point out some resources that can help you out if there are any difficulties with any of these processes. Yes, so what is financial aid? Financial aid consists of loans and grant funding from the provincial and federal government to support students pursuing post-secondary studies. Any Canadian citizen, permanent resident, or protected person that is refugee enrolled in an accredited institution, which includes U Calgary, and you have a financial need, can receive some coverage through the student aid program. Students who are residents of Alberta would apply for financial aid through Alberta Student Aid. You would count as a resident if you have lived in Alberta for the last 12 months prior to starting post-secondary, or for permanent resident if you have never lived in another province for 12 consecutive months. You will apply for funding through studentaid.alberta.ca, and you'll also need to have a verified alberta.ca account in order to apply for funding. If you have moved to Alberta from another province, you will likely need to apply through your own province's student aid program. You can contact your lender directly for more information, or you can Google, for example, BC Student Aid or Ontario Student Aid, and it will take you to the lender's webpage for instructions on how to apply. Now, the processes differ a little, province by province, and we're going to use Alberta Student Aid as our template for this session, but just be aware there could be some slight differences based on the province you're applying with. When you apply for financial aid, your application can take around 4 to 6 weeks for processing by the lender. Now, Alberta Student Aid recommends that students apply 2 months in advance. The application for funding is currently available for the fall 2025 and winter 2026 term, so you can definitely go ahead and apply. Financial aid application can only be approved 30 days prior to the start of the study session, and students can enter an application at any point during the semester. However, Alberta Student Aid requires any submitted applications to be in place 30 days before the end of the study session. Now, this means that, for example, fall 2025, we can begin confirming your application on August the 1st, and students have until December the 1st to submit the application to Alberta Student Aid. Now, there are some important information that is included in the application that students would need to enter, such as basic personal information, including your name, your date of birth, citizenship or residency status, marital status, emergency contact information, and up-to-date contact information. You will also be asked to input information about the institution you're attending and also the program. Now, for this section, you would input the university's name, that is the University of Calgary, the name of the program length, the degree outcome, dates of attendance, and associated costs. The program dates and costing were submitted to Alberta Student Aid by the University of Calgary and is updated in the application. Now, this is the maximum possible amount that you can request up to. So in the application, you would see tuition full course load amount, and that is the amount you need to request. Now, when you're applying for student aid, they also assess the kind of resources that you have versus your costs. The resources that are considered include things like RESPs, employment insurance, Alberta work funding, band funding, and scholarships. And just be aware, if these are not applicable to you, you'd simply put 0 and move on. It is important to also know that for this section, they are not looking for employment income nor things like RRSPs or TFSAs. So Alberta Student Aid will assess the resources that you have and the costs of your education. And as long as you show some financial need, then there will be funding available through the Student Aid program. You will apply for financial aid every academic year. Now, students are not able to apply for financial aid for the entire program on one application. So you will submit an application for 2 terms of funding, that is fall and winter, on this application. If you decide to take classes in spring and or summer semesters, that application typically opens in February, and you will submit an application at that time. Then you would submit another application next year, June or early July, when the application for the new academic year opens. And just to reiterate, the deadline for an application for financial aid to be considered is 30 days before the period of study end date. So if you are submitting an application for fall, that application needs to be submitted no later than December the 1st. And do know that we're using the dates or the deadlines for Alberta Student Aid. Other provinces may have different deadlines, so you should double check with your lender for their deadlines. So just to explain what we went through on the previous slide about educational costs, as we do get questions from students about this section. So once students enter the name of the program and the dates, the system will populate the amounts that needs to be requested. As you can see, the application shows full course load amount. Now, this is the amount that you need to enter in the requested amount spaces for tuition, mandatory fees, books and supplies, and for computer costs, related costs. The maximum that can be requested here is 500. Now, in the example on screen, the full course load amount for tuition is 7,100. So you would enter this amount in the requested amount space. Mandatory fee full course load amount in the sample is 1,484. So you need to enter that amount. Important to note is that different programs will have different full course load amount in the application. So you will need to enter the amount that you see once you get to that section. There are some great resources on Alberta Student Aid website to assist students with their application. Now, I would recommend that you take some notes here. So the website again is studentaid.alberta.ca. And the first resource I want to bring to your attention is a very short and informative video. So you'll click on apply, then how to apply. Then the video is step 6, complete your application. This video guides students on how to complete the application and it's only 5 minutes long. Now this you can watch after our session. The next resource is the application worksheet. This lists out all the information required in the application. It can be a good idea to complete the worksheet before opening the application, as it will prompt you to get all the required personal and financial information together. There is also the funding guide that is available. It is a high-level review of the entire process. It defines the terms lenders tend to use, answers common questions related to the application, and shows the tables used for assessing you for grants and cost of living. It may not be the most interesting read in the world, but it is highly recommended to give it some review prior to applying for financial aid. And finally, this may not be relevant for folks for some time. The Repayment Essentials Guide is a fantastic resource for going over what to expect once you have completed your studies. While it can be intimidating, it is always a good idea to know this information going in so there are no surprises once you have graduated. Okay, so when applying for financial aid, you are assessed for both loans and grants. Grants are funds that do not need to be repaid at the end of your studies. These are funds that the federal and provincial government issues to students to support their costs of education. Now, it is always a good idea to apply for government student aid, even if you're in a position where you have a plan in place to pay for your education, as you may get assessed for these grants, and these are funds that do not need to be repaid at the end of your degree unless there are some changes in your registration status. Now, an example would be if a student applies and receives full-time funding, but drops to part-time during the semester. In this circumstance, Alberta Student Aid may convert a portion of your grant amounts into loans. In that way, they would require you to pay back the grants when you go into repayment after completing your degree, and Alberta Student Aid would communicate this to the student once the amendment process takes place. But as long as you maintain the correct level of study and maintain the terms of your study agreement, that wouldn't become a problem for you to address. Now, loans are funds that need to be repaid, and loan eligibility is determined based on your financial need. And again, financial need is always calculated as the cost of being in school minus the resources that you have. Now, you don't need to apply for these separately, as one application will consider you for both loans and grants. Now, if you only want to apply for grants, you can enter $1 when asked about the maximum amount of funding that you need. And if you qualify for grants, they will award you grants. So again, even if you're in a position where you know exactly where your funding is coming from, it's always a good idea to consider applying for financial aid for you to be assessed for those grant funding. The application that you submit must match the level of enrollment at U Calgary. There is financial aid available when you are studying full-time through the fall and winter semesters, and also if you're picking up additional courses through the spring and or summer term. Your academic load, that is your full-time or part-time status, determines the process for applying for financial aid. As a full-time student, you apply online through Alberta Student Aid Portal, and to be considered a full-time student, you must be enrolled in at least 3 courses for the fall and or winter term, or 2 courses enrolled in spring and or summer. It is worth noting that this is specific for undergrad students. If you are grad students here with us tonight, please refer to our financial aid frequently asked questions page. You can Google financial aid U Calgary for more information and guidance. Now, when you are part-time, so less than 3 courses for the fall and winter term, or less than 2 in spring and or summer, you are assessed for funding slightly differently. There is no cost of living allowance included in the assessment for part-time funding. Only educational expenses are covered. That is tuition, general fees, and books. Now, if you are part-time, then you would complete all of the student section of the part-time paper application form found on Alberta Student Aid website and submit to our team through the service request tab on your student center for us to complete section 5 and return to you with further instructions. Once you've submitted the application, once you've submitted a full-time application, you can make changes to your application through your Alberta Student Aid portal. But once you have been approved for financial aid and you're issued the student award letter, the university will receive your data to confirm your registration, and at this stage, you will not be able to make changes to the application. Now, a request for review can be submitted at this point to alter the application that was submitted. This can be required under some circumstances, such as applying for financial aid under the incorrect program or using the incorrect study dates. Sometimes a request for review can take up to 30 days, and it can be better to cancel the application and resubmit with the correct information, and this is normally a lot faster than a request for review. You can contact enrollment services for support if needed with this process. The application process, the assessment of financial aid, and disbursement of funds are supported by the lender. Now, our financial aid team administers the confirmation process for all government loans and grants. Our role here is to confirm that you are a student and that the details included in the application matches your student file. This process begins in August, that is approximately 30 days before the start of the semester, and we send out confirmation to Alberta Student Aid through an automated process that runs nightly that you are full-time at the institution for the period that you requested funding for. Now, on the Student Center under My Financials, students can monitor the status of their financial aid confirmation and the status of your financial aid by navigating to the Government Student Aid section of the website. Once you receive your student award letter, the Government Student Aid section of My Financials will update with your financial aid agreement and will show the status of the confirmation. This is usually by the next business day from when you receive your award letter. Now, students are not contacted if there is an error with your confirmation. So you should regularly review the section of your student center once you receive your award letter from the lender. This is our primary way of communicating the status of your financial aid confirmation or if there are any errors in confirmation. Now see sample error message on screen and students will need to correct this error for our system to confirm them to Alberta Student Aid. Now, there are some common mistakes that students make when applying for financial aid that results in errors in the confirmation process. Now, if the details of your status at UCalgary doesn't match what is stated in the application, there will be delays. If you are not sure, it is always best to reach out to us for support. Now, for tonight's session, we will only discuss the errors highlighted here, but be reminded that funds are not released if these errors are not corrected. Now, the first thing is if you are a part-time student and you applied for full-time funding, now we can't confirm your registration, or if you applied for 2 terms of funding as full-time, example fall and winter, but you are not enrolled full-time for both terms, we will not be able to confirm full-time registration. You need to be full-time for both terms to be confirmed. If you apply with the wrong set of dates or the wrong program name, that will also lead to confirmation errors, and you will need to cancel and resubmit your application. Now, as mentioned before, a request for review to correct an error will take 30 days or more, and canceling and resubmitting is always a faster option. Other common reasons for your funds to have not been dispersed are if you are not registered in classes at all quite as yet. Now, if there are no class registration on file, then we have nothing to compare the information to. Or if you haven't completed your master's student financial aid agreement, now this is a document that you'll be required to complete that allows the lender to directly deposit funds to your account. This is required as a first-time borrower, and you will receive instructions to complete this agreement 3 business days after being approved for funding. Okay. When you are applying for financial aid, there are specific university study dates that should be used in the application. If you are applying for funding for the fall term only, the dates that should be used in the application are September the 1st to December 31st. If you are submitting an application for the winter term only, you will need to use January the 1st to April 30th. Or if you are applying for funding for the fall and winter terms on one application, you would need to use September the 1st to April 30th. And you can check out our website for frequently asked questions by Google search Financial Aid Calgary. And you'll also see exceptions to these dates, such as exchange out program and medicine dates. Once a student's enrollment has been confirmed by our office, they can expect to receive their funding within 7 to 10 business days. The University of Calgary does not request the government to send funds to us. Now, this is common for some institutions, but not U Calgary. Now, the funds that you approve will be deposited directly into your account, and it is then your responsibility to pay your fees to the university. Now, there are going to be two disbursement fee periods with the application. The first will be the start of the study period, and the second will be the midpoint of the study period. So if you submitted an application for both fall and winter on one submission, you can expect your first disbursement of funds in early September and the second disbursement in late December or early January. Now, if all goes smoothly, you will have your funds in hand well before the payment deadlines. Okay, so just a bit of overview of what we've covered so far. First thing in the process is to determine your eligibility for financial aid. Will you be receiving financial aid through Alberta, or will you be receiving financial aid through another province such as BC or Ontario? Determining which province you meet the residency requirement for, that's the province that you've lived in for 12 months prior to starting school. Then you will create an account and apply for financial aid online, Alberta Student Aid, or your province of residency. Once the assessment is complete, you'll be issued an award letter outlining the funds you'll be receiving and when to expect the disbursement of these funds. The data then comes to the school and we will either confirm everything is correct or an error will appear in your student center. Now, once the award letter is issued, keep an eye on the My Financial section for your status of your financial aid, for the status of your financial aid. Then funds are dispersed directly to the student. And finally, you pay your tuition fees, your residency fee, or rent, or any other expenses that you have outstanding. Now, at the end of your studies, Alberta Student Aid provides a 12 months grace period, and the federal lender, NSLSC, provides a 6 months grace period after your last reported date before you go into repayment. So 12 months for Alberta and NSLSC, 6 months before you go into repayment. While you are in full-time studies, your loans are not generating interest. Interest only starts to generate on your loans once your grace period has ended. Now, bear in mind that not all provinces are the same, so always double check the terms of your loan with your lender. Loans are not free money, as we mentioned earlier. Students should know ahead of time that these funds you will need to repay when you have completed your studies. Now, students who are getting financial aid for each year of study shouldn't worry too much about going into repayment during studies. However, if you're taking a semester off or are doing internship or co-op and won't be applying for financial aid, you may need to submit a payment and interest-free request to keep your loans out of repayment while you are still in study. Side note, if you ever decide to continue your studies and not take out new financial aid, you must let your lender know so you do not go into repayment before your end of studies. Remember, lenders do not know what you're doing unless you inform them. So we are going to switch gears away from government financial aid and discuss some undergraduate award opportunities that you will have while studying at U Calgary. So there may be folks here who have received notice about an entrance award. Congratulations if you have been selected. Your entrance award, including the President's Admission Scholarship, will be applied to your account evenly, with 50% of the value applied to your fall term and the other 50% applied to your winter term. Now, you can expect to see those payments on your UCalgary student account in August and mid-December for those awards. These awards will directly be applied to your fees in your student center, and any excess balance will automatically be refunded on set dates. That is October 25th for the fall term and February 25th for the winter term. Now, ensure your direct deposit information is submitted in the My Financial section of your student center as soon as possible to avoid any delays getting your funds. Most awards have eligibility requirements that you have to maintain. For entrance awards, this is usually maintaining a full-time level of study in your first year, and some awards are also tied to completing a specific program. When you are selected for an award, you are issued an award letter that outlines the terms of the award and what to expect for disbursement. If you are ever unsure of what to expect, always refer to your award letter that was issued. Your entrance awards, continuing awards, are the largest category of funds administered through the University of Calgary. Now, these are intended for students going into their second, third, fourth, or fifth year, and are assessed based on your previous year of study, that is your previous fall and winter term. Basic eligibility requirements are completing 8 courses or 24 units or 4 classes in fall and 4 in winter, and maintaining at least a 3.2 GPA. Now, do not be dissuaded by the explicit eligibility criteria, whether that be internal awards or external awards. Every year, there are funds left unallocated as applicable students may not have applied. Now, some awards are issued simply based on the applicant's specific experience, like being involved in a certain club, or graduating from a certain high school, or being enrolled in a certain program. An application may take an hour or so, but the worst outcome is being told no, you were not selected, and the best outcome is additional funding for in your pocket. So we will always encourage students to apply for any applicable awards that might be relevant for your program. Now, do see our website for more information on when these awards become available. This past year, the continuing awards ran from March to May, so just keep this in mind as you're wrapping up your second semester. You may be able to apply for awards based on your first year of study. Now, the awards that we've been discussing so far are more focused on your academics and community engagement or leadership, but there are also bursaries available through the previous application as well. Now, bursaries are assessed and granted based on need, that is cost minus resources. So school is very expensive, and most students will show a certain amount of financial need. So do not hesitate to apply when these open up in October. Now, even with a financial plan in place, Sometimes things outside of our control can change our financial future significantly. U Calgary is able to support you if unexpected expenses pop up. This could be additional bursaries, short-term loans, or even grocery gift cards to ensure you keep food on your table. If during your study with U Calgary you find things are getting tighter than expected, please contact enrollment services for support. Now we can always take a look and see what additional supports we have available to help out. Okay, so we have chatted mostly about awards, scholarships, and bursaries offered through U Calgary. There are a whole list of awards that you can apply for outside of the institution. External awards can be quite broad. These awards can be offered through unions, employers, volunteer, or community associations, and more. We have included a few links to some online scholarship banks here, but please take a look at our awards website for a full list of external stakeholders that you may be able to receive additional funding through. Now, a 500-word essay that you spend an hour or two putting together may award you your grocery money for the month. So as always, apply, apply, apply to absolutely anything that looks relevant for you and your program. Okay, almost done here for tonight. Now, in addition to assessing and issuing loans and grants to the student aid program, the provincial lender also have awards and scholarships that are issued. Again, we will talk about some common Alberta Student Aid Award, but please check your provincial lender for additional support or additional opportunities if you're joining us from out of province. The Alexander Rutherford Scholarship is offered to students joining post-secondary right out of high school. It is exclusively for Alberta residents and is applied for through the Alberta Student Aid Portal, similarly to how you apply for financial aid. It is assessed based on your last year of high school and requires full-time enrollment at U Calgary in order to qualify. There are a few other awards that are connected to this application as well. So if you're joining U Calgary after completing your last year of high school in Alberta, make sure you apply for this award. Recipients of this award would receive a check mailed out by Alberta Student Aid later on in the fall term. After your first year of study, there are a few awards offered through Alberta Student Aid as a continuing award. One's based on your first year of study at the university. Both the Louise McKinney and the Jason Lang scholarship requires a minimum of 3.5 and at least 24 units completed in the previous year of study and are assessed based on your academic standing. Now, meeting the minimum criteria may not be sufficient to be awarded one of these scholarships. The application for these opens up July 1st. So if there are folks here who have completed a year of study, just go ahead and apply now. You can receive these awards like 3 times over the course of your degree. So apply for them going into your second, third, and fourth year at the university. It is important to note that if you're doing a co-op or internship or doing an exchange program abroad through the fall and winter term, you won't meet the minimum requirement for these awards. Now, if you're taking internship and some classes, you could still qualify for these awards. Okay, it is always so important to say you're not alone. And no matter what kind of problem or problems you're experiencing, there are folks and programs on campus that can help. Whether it's an issue with your financial aid or awards, or needing help getting your studies on track, there is someone who can help guide you through the process. Now, you can book an appointment with us, you can visit us in person, or you can contact us by phone. I have the QR code on screen there if you want to take a picture of that. And I'll give folks a few minutes, a few seconds to take a picture of the QR code. Okay. And finally, we want to invite you to scan our QR code to begin the survey. You do not have to complete the survey now, but you do need to begin the survey before exiting the session. Now, it is important to let us know what landed and what didn't, so we can improve on these sessions going forward. All right, so give you a few seconds to scan this QR code as well. Okay, wonderful. Now we will proceed to question and answer section in a moment here, but thank you all for attending. Hopefully we connected you with some useful information tonight. Have a wonderful night.